is perfect. So let's get spooky. Let's get spooky. Okay, let's do it. I haven't been here in a while. And today I decided to pop out just so I can, tell you guys a story. So this one was actually submitted to me. And I've been sitting on this for a long time because, first of all, I feel like it's such a long story. And I need time to actually get it through my head and tell it properly. And I've been busy so much the past couple of weeks. If you skip my intro, you ain't shit, okay? If you skip all of this, is it even real? It's obviously not real. But yes, thank you guys so much, by the way, for 30,000 subscribers. Oh my God, I cannot believe that this is real. Like, me saying this right now, like, I feel like I'm living in a dream in my head from like 2019. This is actually insane. I want to thank each and every single last one of you guys. This is a reality that I want to stay in forever. So without further ado, let's get into this story time. So we're gonna get comfortable, okay? Because it's real gloomy outside. So let's just get real comfy. So there was this girl. Her name is, we're gonna call her Cynthia. So Cynthia, ever since she was born, she knew that there was something, well, not that she necessarily knew that there was something different about her, but there was something obviously different about her. Since she wasn't born directly into a stable home where she had, like, your traditional mom and father. No, ever since she's had consciousness, she was always being passed around. And so she remembers when she was about 4 years old, she was living in this particular house, and then they decided that they didn't want her to live in that house anymore for some reason, and they moved her. And ever since she was 4 until about the age of about 8, she was being passed around from homes to homes to homes. And when she was about 7 or 8 years old, she discovered that she had powers. By the way, this story takes place in Haiti. So yes, so she discovered around the age of 6, 7 that, she had powers. And by that, she means that she would have a lot of, like, outer body experiences. So when she would go to sleep, she would leave her body a lot. Like, her soul would escape her body, and she would be, what's the word I'm looking for? She would basically be floating on top of her body, and she's able to look down. And not only that, but she also says that she's able to travel places very well, go into other people's dreams, and just do whatever she wants in the dream realm. And she also says that this is also how she knows that a lot of people cannot hold many secrets against her, because she would always find out everything either via dream form, or she would have like a premonition of it or something. So yes, so around 7, 8 years old would be the time, 6, 7 would be the time that she discovered that, oh, okay, I think these things make me a little bit different. So when she was about 8, she got moved into this house, and we'll call them the Johnsons. So now Cynthia is living with the Johnsons. Now with the Johnsons, it was the mother, the father. It was Mother Johnson, Father Johnson, and it was the sister. We'll call her Sissy. It was Sissy and the older brother, Johnson Jr. So Mrs. Johnson, Daddy Johnson, Sissy, and Johnson Jr. We got it. So they move into the house, and Sissy's the youngest, and Johnson Jr. is older than Sissy. So boom, she starts living in the house, and obviously living in this house, she's a restavek. So she has to know how to do a lot of things, like cook, clean, and like do laundry, and folding laundry, and ironing laundry, and all of this. So she's like well skilled in all of these things, and that was her job being with the Johnsons. Now she was never a part of the family because she was just the restavek. So she slept somewhere by the shed. She had like whatever beaten down clothes that Sissy wasn't wearing, because her and Sissy were the same age. So she was really just getting hand-me-downs and whatever, they would provide her at the time. Now, she said they very much so mistreated her in the house, because they were physically abusive to her. Whenever there was something wrong, whenever there was something going on in the house, she was the one to blame. So she would wind up getting a lot of strays. And then on top of that, it also did not help that Sissy was extremely rude to her. Like, it was the same case. So not only was Mother Johnson a bitch, Daddy Johnson was a bitch, but now Sissy is also a bitch. And so the only person in that house that gave Cynthia a chance was Johnson Jr. Now, Johnson Jr. always felt like he was very different from the rest of the family. He was more into arts and things like that, so he never really spent a lot of time at home. So he always went out to do whatever like he wanted to do. He never really spent a lot of time at home. Now, it's fair to mention that the Johnsons are not a struggling family. They have a very nice house. They have a piscine, a pool out back. So they're not a struggling family structure. You know what I'm saying? So now Johnson Jr. has always been the one to at least treat Cynthia with respect. Whenever he would walk in the house, he would make it a point to also greet her as well. And he's even been confronted by his family members about his kindness towards Cynthia and letting her know that Cynthia is just a help and that he doesn't have to be this way towards everybody. So cool. Fast forward, they get a little bit older. So Cynthia at that point has been with them for over 9 years. So we'll put Cynthia at like 17, about to be 18 years old. And so would be Sissy at the time because they're the same age. And Johnson Jr. is older than all of them. So we'll say Johnson is like in his 20s at this point. So now, you know, they get to... Now, Cynthia never went to school. Ever. So they never sent her to school. Her only job was to be in the house and all of this. So while Cynthia was growing up, there was a secret that she had to keep from Sissy. From whatever. Sissy. So there was a secret. I don't know why that word is. That name is so hard. Why did I choose it? So there was a secret that she had to keep from Sissy. It was the fact that her parents, Mrs. Johnson and Daddy Johnson, both of them would have these little ceremonies that would occur that the rest of the family would not know about. So Mrs. Johnson and Daddy Johnson, the grandmother was also involved. So the grandmother would come over to the house and stuff like that. And, you know, they would just think grandmother's just here to spend time. But nope, there was always a deeper agenda. So what the rest of the family was Sissy and Johnson Jr. did not know, and everyone else that they were, you know, having around in the house, was the fact that the Johnsons presented as Christians. They told everybody, well, Catholics. They told everybody that they were Catholics. They went to church every single Sunday. They presented, like, they had images of Jesus all over their houses, Bible verses all over their houses. They were Christian. They were a Christian household. Okay? However, according to Cynthia, that the glitter's not that gold, because these people were absolute fucking witches. Yeah. So, unbeknownst to Sissy and unbeknownst to Johnson, as they would go to church every single Sunday, what they did not know was that Cynthia was forced to basically be a part of their ceremonies, as they discovered that Cynthia also had these powers early on. And it was actually the grandmother who was the one to point out that Cynthia was a powerful one living amongst them. So let's backtrack to when Cynthia was just 8 years old and she had just moved in with the Johnsons. When Cynthia just moved in with the Johnsons, the grandmother was around a lot more often, because at that point they didn't have a Restovic, so the grandmother was doing a lot of the loads or a lot of the work that Cynthia herself was doing. So when she stepped in, the grandmother started coming around a little bit less often. But later they would discover that the grandmother had a talk with the Johnsons, the mom and the father, and would let them know that there's something about Cynthia that they need to investigate on. Because apparently the grandmother tried to do something to Cynthia, trying to steal Cynthia's beauty for Cece, I guess you could say. Yeah, so she said that she was trying to steal her beauty for Cece, for her own granddaughter. However, all the spells that she was trying on Cynthia were all failing. So she discovered that there has to be something about Cynthia, because why isn't it? Why doesn't her voodoo work on Cynthia? And now grandmother is a pretty powerful witch, so why can't she touch Cynthia? So then she started getting suspicious of Cynthia and thinking that there is actually indeed something special about this girl. So when she went to the mom, Johnson and the father, and let them know of the fact that Cynthia might be really powerful and even more powerful than all of them, but Cynthia's not aware of this, right? So they might as well get on this before Cynthia can get on this herself, basically. So unbeknownst to the rest of the family, Mrs. Johnson, Daddy Johnson, and the grandmother would host all these ceremonies where they would do all these spells and all these things on people. They would do all these heinous things to people, and a lot of the time Cynthia was forced to participate, and she had no reason to be there or to want to harm these people. And a lot of the time she was being used to harm other people. So it would either be the Johnson's colleagues, like the people that they work with, you know what I'm saying? So it's like the time that Daddy Johnson just magically got promoted at work. It wasn't really that surprising, considering the fact that him and his wife and the grandmother would often host these ceremonies where they would get really close to these powerful people, or they would get really close to these, like, I guess, people who are ahead of them, and basically work magic on them and take their positions. And they were doing this, and they didn't only have businesses in Haiti, but they also have businesses in the States as well. So they were known to be out here just taking out people to gain the riches that they actually possessed. So Cynthia is starting to gather all of this the older that she gets, and she's being used in a lot of these things too. And a lot of the times when Johnsons were not there, Cynthia was powerful enough to perform a lot of these ceremonies herself. Now, she would find herself incredibly drained after the fact. However, this was what she's known to do. And Cynthia also said herself that she preferred when the Johnsons were away, because when they were away, it was all she had to deal with was Cece. She'd rather deal with Cece than Cece and the Johnsons, so it was fine. And like she had mentioned earlier in the story, is that Johnson Jr. always treated her with kindness and respect and love, and so it was always cool with him around. So now fast forward to when she's about 13 years old, she starts to build a friendship with Johnson Jr. Now, their friendship was pretty much like, it bothered the rest of the family but it never really raised a red flag for anybody, because it was just like, okay, well, he's just always nice to everybody, so like, I guess that's just him, right? So they started to develop this friendship, and within their friendship, Cynthia never went to school, but Johnson Jr. was kind enough to teach Cynthia how to read, to teach Cynthia how to count, to teach Cynthia a little bit of math. And Cynthia was actually very receptive, and she learned a lot from Johnson Jr. So by the time she was about 17, 18 years old, Cynthia fully knew how to read, she fully knew how to count. And at this point, even though she'd never been to school, she's reading books on her own, right? So at this point, when Cynthia was about 16 years old, she starts to develop feelings for Johnson Jr. And even though she knew where she stood, right? She knew that she was the rest of it. She knew that she was going to be with this family for however long she was going to be with this family for. So she knew that a relationship with Johnson Jr. was never going to be possible. Not as long as she was still in that house, and she never really saw herself leaving. So that was just that. So she develops these feelings and never said anything to Johnson Jr., and she tried to hide them as best as possible, because she understood the repercussions that would happen if the family even suspected that she was crushing on their son. And mind you, this is this family's only son. And if you know anything about Haitians and their sons, they love their sons, and they expect their sons to marry freaking Barack Obama's wife herself. Cynthia always tried to hide her feelings for Johnson Jr. However, one day, Johnson Jr. actually came forward and, started making his little advances towards Cynthia. And Cynthia started picking up what he's putting down, like, oh, are you, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden, Johnson Jr. started spending a little bit more time at home, and they would try to hide it, them spending time together away from the family as much as possible. They winded up, doing what, lovers do or whatever, you know what I mean? And yeah, that was that. They were having a secret relationship in the house from the time that Cynthia was 16 for a very, very long time, and no one found out. So during that time, Cynthia says that it was, even though she was forced to do all of this work, all of this spiritual work for Mrs. and Mr. Johnson, it was routine for her. So it never really rang her as like a sense of extra stress. And plus, her relationship with Johnson Jr. was keeping her very much so distracted from everything that was happening. And she said that she even recalls that time with Johnson Jr. to be one of the best times of her life. She was absolutely in love, enthralled, infatuated with Johnson Jr. And Johnson Jr. was the exact same. So much so that when Cynthia turned about 19 years old, Johnson Jr. says that he wanted to tell the family that they were together. And Cynthia thought that that was a terrible idea, because where would she go? This would all go to hell. This would not be good. What would she do? Pretty much. And keep in mind, throughout their entire relationship, Cynthia never told Johnson Jr. about the work that she has to do for his parents. She never told Johnson Jr. that his parents are in fact witches, and probably the reason why half of the neighborhood cannot sleep, and why half of his colleagues just keep turning up dead, and why some of his friends also turn up dead. Cynthia also had a very deep confession to make. Cynthia was forced to do work on a girl that they thought Johnson was seeing. So Mrs. Johnson thought that Johnson Jr. was seeing this girl. However, that wasn't the girl that Johnson Jr. was actually seeing. Now, whether the girl was actually interested in Johnson Jr. or not, Johnson Jr. was actually not seeing that girl, but the parents thought that she was seeing him and that they were seeing each other, and the parents hated that girl's parents. And so the Johnsons told Cynthia to, take care of that problem. And so Cynthia had to do something where I ran out of storage, so I'm sorry if I look a little bit different. Let's get straight back into it. So yeah, so she had to do work on some girl that the Johnsons thought that she was seeing, basically make her go a little cuckoo so she could stay away from Johnson Jr. And she knew all of this, right? And she was keeping it all a secret, but still seeing Johnson Jr. on the low. So when she got about 19 years old, Johnson Jr. wants to come clean and tell the entire family about this secret that, he's been holding from them, is that, they've been in a relationship. And now Johnson Jr. at this point, he's ready to move on with his life and, actually be with Cynthia. Cynthia is afraid of this idea, and Cynthia knows that this just will not work. Like, there's no way. The parents will sabotage it. The parents will get in the middle of it. Like, Cynthia just knows that this is a bad idea. Plus, she's been holding this terrible secret away from him, right? So what, like Johnson thinks she's a freaking Catholic. So, like, what the hell? So, eventually, one night, it would all come, unfortunately, to a terrible head when Johnson Jr. got into it with his parents, and Johnson Jr. just blurted out that he's in fact a grown man and that he can make his own decisions, like this decision that he made to be with Cynthia. So he said that, and basically Cynthia is hearing the entire argument, and she said in that moment her heart dropped like it never dropped before. She knew that this was the start of something just that she just could not physically handle. So Johnson Jr. storms out of the house, and, well, you guessed it, the Johnsons then came out where, Cynthia was staying, and they inflicted a lot of pain on. I literally keep running out of storage. trying to tell this story and it's just all choppy. Forgive me. But yes, so now Johnson Jr. done told the Johnsons who he wants to be with and that he's a grown man and that he could do whatever he wants for himself and that he decides that he wants to be with Cynthia. So they go into Cynthia's shed where she was staying and absolutely just violated her. Like, they beat her up really, really bad and basically threatened her and threatened to do, voodoo on her. And now Cynthia was always afraid of the Johnsons, even though she had a clue that she was probably more powerful than them as they left a lot of their work to her. It was still a mental thing that she had to overcome because she felt like she got a lot of the things that she knows and a lot of the skills from the Johnsons. And so she didn't see how she can literally get out from under their grip. So when they threatened to do voodoo on her and all that stuff, that really shook Cynthia to her core. So, she went into this depression, and Johnson Jr. at that point, the family is aware of the relationship, and so it is full on trying to separate them. One day, the mother came home, and she came with the idea that her business abroad needs some help and some supervision. So she decided that she was going to fly Johnson Jr. out to go help with the business abroad. So Johnson, he fought against it. However, the family all came to a thing where they all decided that it was best for Johnson Jr. to leave. And Johnson Jr. winded up leaving. And at that point, they started shunning Cynthia away from a lot of the ceremonies that they were doing. So Cynthia, at that point, she wasn't really put, in the position to do a lot of the spells, a lot of the work, a lot of the ceremonies she was doing for them before. And now she's kind of being treated worse than the outsider, where she is still expected to cook, clean, and do laundry and do everything else. It's just that at this point, the rudeness has skyrocketed and they're being really a lot more strict and a lot more abusive towards Cynthia. So Cynthia got to a point where she just couldn't take it anymore. And at that point, Johnson Jr. had left, and life is just bad because she is depressed, but she still has to work through everything that she's going through. And when Johnson Jr. left, he was not allowed to speak to Cynthia. Cynthia didn't have a phone, so if there was any way that they could speak, it would be through the phone. He would send letters, and Cynthia would never receive those letters as they would be ripped up, and they were kept away from each other utterly and completely. Now, Cynthia never went to get her visa or her passport done because, again, all of those things Johnsons would have to help her with. So she has just now fully accepted that she has lost this man. So as she continues working in the house, doing her thing, doing her due diligence, one day she goes grocery shopping, and as she's walking past the river, she starts to hear this singing. So she's like, what is that? So she was always curious, and honestly, at that point, she said that she had nothing to lose. So she decided to follow along the singing to see where it would lead her. So she said it led her in this little secluded area of the water where it was past behind the bushes, where it's separated by sand. And once you cross over the sand and you go behind the bushes, there's this little puddle of water, and it was coming from there. So she says she goes over there and she's looking, but she's not seeing any singing or anything. So then she decides to dip her foot into the water to see how deep it goes. But when she dipped her foot in, it seemed like it was a really long thing. So she was like, okay, interesting. But, she doesn't know what it is. The singing is still going on, and at this point, she's thinking maybe they actually did do voodoo on her, and maybe she's losing her mind because she's investigating where the singing is going on. She's not seeing anything. She just dipped her foot in, and it seems like it's going deeper. So at this point, Cynthia is full on convinced that she's lost her mind. And so what she did next is that of a crazy person. She decided that she was just gonna end it all. She was just, fuck it, she's gonna end her life. This is it. She's had enough of life. She's had enough of Earth. It's been exciting. She's gonna dip out. So that little pool of water that was separated by a little bit of sand from the actual main beach, she, instead of dipping one foot in, at this point she decided that she was just fully going to drown herself into that little sink. So she dropped her whole body in. And she said once she dropped her body in, she held her breath, and immediately she started regretting it as she realized that she's drowning. So she's trying to swim, but she says the water pressure is so intense that it feels like no matter what she does, it is pulling her down. And mind you, Cynthia does not know how to swim. So she's just welling down in the water. But no matter what efforts she put in, she was just being lowered deeper and deeper, unfortunately, into whatever. So she says the deeper and deeper that she gets, she starts to hear this voice talking to her. It's like this soft feminine voice telling her to relax, telling her to calm down, and telling her that they have been waiting for her to come to this kingdom for a long time. So Cynthia's freaking out. She's like, yeah, okay, obviously somebody did something to me. I'm losing my mind. I'm trying to unalive myself, and I'm freaking out. And as she's freaking out, she realizes that she can breathe. And she's startled because she's breathing underwater. Now, the thing is, as she's been doing all these voodoo ceremonies and things like that, she is no, I guess, stranger to mermaids or anything like that. But to her having that experience, she said, oh, that was different for her. That was, to actually live it was crazy. She says she's hearing this voice in her head, and they're telling her, you can open your eyes, you can breathe. And she's realizing, wait, she can breathe. She can open her eyes. And she says, although it looks really foggy, she can see that she was surrounded by creatures that were half fish and half women. And she says she didn't see any males. She don't know if they're mermen or what they would look like. But she says that a lot of the ones that she were encountered by were females, as their hair were really, really long and really, really shiny. And she said a lot of them had really long eyelashes and really beautiful features. Their top halves were greenish. Some of them looked a little bit more brownish or copper, as she would describe copper. And yes, that's what they looked like. And they had scary teeth, like the shark-looking teeth. So she said that when she opened her eyes and she saw those creatures, she was automatically startled by them, just based on how they look and based on how the fact that it was so foggy and it was so much going on, because she didn't intend for this to happen, as she was just trying to take her life. So in this moment, those creatures start telepathically explaining to her what it is that they need from her. They're telling her that her powers come from the water. She's always been powerful, and that she is a water creature. And as soon as she wakes up to that, she will know what she's truly capable of, and she will be able to essentially break free. But there are certain steps that she has to take in order to do that. So then they gave her like this list of instructions, and they told her when she gets back on ground that this is what she has to do, and that they will keep in contact with her via her dreams, or if they ever need her, or if she ever needs them, all she has to do is find a body of water where she can fully submerge herself and call out to them, and they will come to her rescue. So from there, she left, she went back, and she's still afraid, because it's like, what the fuck? Am I really about to, like, to leave the Johnsons to go to these unknown creatures that just pulled me out of my death, for real, is too much of an insane jump. So Cynthia is really just weighing the options. She gets back home, and she says at this point her dream starts getting absolutely insane. She's dreaming about things that is like she's dreaming about an escape, and she says her dreams are really, really descriptive, and she remembers every single last detail. She remembers that she dreamt of an escape, and it seemed so real, and she felt like she lived through it already, that by the time she woke up, she knew exactly what she would do in order to escape the Johnson's house, and exactly what she would do after she leaves the Johnson's house, and exactly where she would go. So she's like, at this point, when she gets back, everything just seems to be close, but she was still afraid of the fact that the Johnsons would do voodoo on her, and they would either make her lose her mind or anything. I mean, at this point, she's lost her love, which is Johnson Jr., and she's given up on that. So at this point, the best that she could do for herself is leave that abusive, toxic environment. So as she would do as she was instructed by the spirits that were in the water, and she would always come back to the water every now and again to see, if there's anything more that's needed from her. And she says eventually she was able to leave the Johnsons. And how she was able to do that was she put a spell on the house, where in her dream she got specific instructions on how she was able to put spells inside of the house. She put a spell on the house where she was able to escape the house. However, everybody inside of that house was stuck in sleep. They were stuck in deep sleep. As long as you entered that house, you went to sleep. Girl, you went bye-bye, knock-knock. And so that's exactly what she did. She put a spell in the house and she walked out during the middle of the night while Johnsons were sleeping. Now, she's unsure how long they were knocked out for, but she knew exactly where to go, which was just stumbled in there, and they knew exactly what she was going to be there for. As escaping to this, it was this lady around the way. She just knew, it was this lady around the way. She just knew exactly where to go for some reason, as she had dreamt it in her dream, and she knew that this old woman would be there to greet her, to welcome her inside of the house. And when she got to that woman's house, the woman took her inside and gave her a little bit more knowledge about the creatures that she had encountered when she was trying to end her life. And the woman gave her advice and told her exactly who they were, which she said was La Sirene and her helpers. And those were indeed marine creatures, and that she is indeed a mermaid herself, and well, reincarnated in human form. And that's where she got her powers from, and that she's always been powerful ever since she was a kid. And from there, the woman helped her and put, oh my God. And from there, the woman helped her and put a protection spell around her. The woman blessed her and did this ceremony where Cynthia participated as well. And they went out to the beach. They did this other ceremony that was for her protection, where they then sent her away from where she was staying at, which she doesn't want to disclose which part of Haiti she was in. But she says she wound up leaving that part of Haiti to go to a whole nother part of Haiti to start a whole new life. And from then, she says that she's only heard news from the Johnsons in her sleep, as she dreamt that the Johnsons, like the mom and the dad, the mom winded up getting really sick at some point, and now the dad is taking care of the mom, and it wasn't looking really good for the mom. So Cynthia is saying that she feels like the karma is really starting to set in for them, as Cece also has lost her mind out of nowhere, and no one knows what happened to her. She literally just walked out of the house one day and disappeared, and she never came back. And unfortunately, she never heard back again from Johnson Jr. So that was pretty much the story. I'm sorry, guys. I had to really wrap it up and make it as quick as I can, because I literally keep running out of storage, and I don't know when I'm going to run out of storage next. So I feel like I really fluffed the story as much as I could to really make it fit. So thank you guys so much for watching. I am definitely going to be coming out with merch. If you made it this far in the video, please make sure you leave a comment saying merch, or I made it this far, or that you're excited for merch, because I'm excited to make the merch for y'all. I'm talking mad fast. I love you guys so much, my abducted humans, from your favorite, absolute favorite Haitian homegirl. And I hope that, let me see if I've left anything out of the story. The lady gave her a pocketbook, and she got the pocketbook, and when she got to the other side of Haiti that she went to, she was then able to start a business. And she was able to start a business helping other women grow their hair. So her business is all about hair growth, and now she helps other women grow long, beautiful, thick, luscious hair. And she doesn't want people to, get too much into her brand or discover which one it is, because the secret is, to a lot of the hair growth, is the secret that she has gotten from down below from the mermaids. And she knows how people feel about mermaids and voodoo and all that stuff. So, she doesn't want people to know that her brand indeed has been growing so many people's hair, because she gets the secret directly from under the water. So she says now she lives pretty good. She travels a lot. She's sometimes in Dominican Republic, she's sometimes in Haiti, and sometimes she comes to the States, because right after she left the Johnsons, she says after she left the Johnsons, she took the pocketbook and she followed all the instructions and all the directions. She says that she always makes sure that
was pretty much the end of the story, y'all. Nothing else significant happened, and it cut off. I kept running out of storage, but don't you guys worry, as I am investing in a new camera and a MacBook very soon. So you guys just stick around. You guys will be getting a lot new and better content. Okay, I love you, my abducted humans. Bye-bye.